Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. This is chapter 8, the Deathday party. And we're back sooner than usual because we went back to lockdown in Brisbane, Queensland. Yay.
If we stay in lockdown long enough, we'll probably bang out like...
Even though I have
chapters.
uni, he doesn't anymore, but I have. But I'm just like, no. Let's do Harry Potter instead.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start.
Before we started, last chapter, which was like literally a couple of days ago now, should be fresh in our minds.
Yeah.
We were talking about where the Potters got so rich, and one of our followers, Captain Subtle, pointed out that Fleamont Potter made this head care potion, and he was right. I looked it up, and he quadrupled the Potter wealth. But I went back and read even further, and he quadrupled the wealth, but they were rich even before that. And in the 12th century, there was a man named Linford of Stinchcombe, and he invented the Skelegro potion, which we're going to see in this book.
Okay.
He also invented the pepper potion, but basically he was like a potion maker, and they made a lot of money from potions, and they had a lot of kids, so that wealth was kind of split amongst, I think it was 7 children at the time.
Cool.
Yep, to each of his 7 kids. So the whole Potter family they were still rich, but you split anything 7 ways, it's not going to be massive. But it was kind of dwindling a little bit, and then old boy Fleamont came in and went, boom, your hair regrow.
Yeah, I wish it was real.
Yeah. So yeah, that solves the mystery of Harry Potter's wealth.
Cool.
Okay.
What's Draco Malfoy's wealth?
I don't know. We'll find that out next chapter.
Okay. If you guys know, let me know.
Yeah,
he
let us
know.
know.
Apparently.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Okay, chapter 8. The Deathday party. Alright, also happy birthday, Harry Potter. It's the 31st of July, which is Harry Potter's birthday.
Cute.
Yeah.
But we don't know when we're going to post this, so... Yeah.
I don't know, tomorrow. I'll post it tomorrow. Happy birthday, Harry, yesterday. October arrived, spreading a damp chill over the grounds and into the castle. Madame Pomfrey, the matron, was kept busy by a sudden spate of colds among the staff and students. Her pepper-up potion... Wow, good timing. Worked instantly, though it left the drinker smoking at the ears for several hours afterwards. Ginny Weasley, who had been looking peaky, I wonder why, was bullied into taking some by Percy. The steam pouring from under her vivid hair gave the impression that her whole head was on fire. Raindrops the size of bullets thundered on the castle windows for days on end. The lake rose, the flower beds turned into muddy streams, and Hagrid's pumpkins swelled to the size of garden sheds. Oliver Wood's enthusiasm for regular training sessions, however, was not dampened, which was why Harry was to be found, late one stormy Saturday afternoon, a few days before Halloween, returning to Gryffindor Tower, drenched to the skin and splattered with mud. Even aside from the rain and wind, it hadn't been a happy practice session. Fred and George, who had been spying on the Slytherin team, had seen for themselves the speed of those new Nimbus 2001s. They reported that the Slytherin team were no more than 7 greenish blurs, shooting through the air like jump jets. As Harry squelched along the deserted corridor, he came across somebody who looked just as preoccupied as he was. Nearly Headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor Tower, was staring morosely out of a window, muttering under his breath. "Don't fulfill their requirements. Half an inch, if that." "Hello, Nick," said Harry. Hello, said Nearly Headless Nick, starting and looking around. He wore a dashing, plumed hat on his long curly hair, and a tunic with a ruff which concealed the fact that his neck was nearly almost completely severed. He was pale as smoke, and Harry could see right through him to the dark sky and torrential rain outside. "You look troubled, young Potter," said Nick, folding a transparent letter as he spoke and tucking it inside his doublet. "So do you," said Harry. "Ah." Nearly headless Nick waved an elegant hand. "A matter of no importance. It's not as though I really wanted to join. Thought I'd apply, but apparently I don't fulfill requirements." In spite of his airy tone, there was a look of great bitterness on his face. "But you would think, though, wouldn't you," he erupted suddenly, pulling the letter back out of his pocket, "that getting hit 45 times in the neck with a blunt axe would qualify you to join the Headless Hunt." "Oh, yes," said Harry, who was obviously supposed to agree. "I mean, nobody wishes more than I do that it had all been quick and clean, and my head had come off properly. I mean, it would have saved me a great deal of pain and ridicule. However," nearly headless Nick shook his letter open and read furiously, "we can only accept huntsmen whose heads have parted company with their bodies. You will appreciate that it would be impossible otherwise for members to participate in hunt activities such as horseback head juggling and head polo. It is with the greatest regret, therefore, that I must inform you that you do not fulfill our requirements. With very best wishes, Sir Patrick Delaney Podmore." Fuming, nearly headless Nick stuffed the letter away. "Half an inch of skin and sinew holding my neck on, Harry. Most people would think that's good and beheaded, but oh no. It's not enough for Sir Properly Decapitated Podmore." Nearly headless Nick took several deep breaths and then said, in a far calmer tone, "So, what's bothering you? Anything I can do?" "No," said Harry. "Not unless you know where we can get 7 free Nimbus 2001s for our match against Slith." The rest of Harry's sentence was drowned by a high-pitched mewing from somewhere near his ankles. He looked down and found himself gazing into a pair of lamp-like yellow eyes. It was Mrs. Norris, the skeletal grey cat who was used by the caretaker, Argus Filch, as a sort of deputy in his endless battle against students. "You'd better get out of here, Harry," said Nick quickly. "Filch isn't in a good mood. He's got flu, and some third years accidentally plastered frog brains all over the ceilings in Dungeon 5. He's been cleaning all morning, and if he sees you dripping mud all over the place—" "Right," said Harry, backing away from the accusing stare of Mrs. Norris, but not quickly enough. Drawn to the spot by the mysterious power that seemed to connect him with his foul cat, Argus Filch burst suddenly through a tapestry to Harry's right, wheezing and looking wildly about for the rule-breaker. There was a thick tartan scarf bound around his head, and his nose was unusually purple. "Filth!" he shouted, his jowls a-quiver, his eyes popping alarmingly as he pointed at the muddy puddle that dripped from Harry's Quidditch robes. "Mess and muck everywhere. I've had enough of it, I tell you. Follow me, Potter." So Harry waved a gloomy goodbye to nearly headless Nick, and followed Filch back downstairs, doubling the number of muddy footprints on the floor. Harry had never been inside Filch's office before. It was a place most students avoided. The room was dingy and windowless, lit by a single oil lamp dangling from the low ceiling. A faint smell of fried fish lingered about the place. Wooden filing cabinets stood around the walls. From their labels, Harry could see that they contained details of every pupil Filch had ever punished. Fred and George Weasley had an entire drawer to themselves. A highly polished collection of chains and manacles hung on the wall behind Filch's desk. It was common knowledge that he was always begging Dumbledore to let him suspend students by their ankles from the ceiling.
This wasn't in the movie.
No, this whole chapter's not in the movies.
Oh, okay.
Filch grabbed a quill from a pot on his desk and began shuffling around looking for parchment. "Dung," he muttered furiously. "Great sizzling dragon bogies. Frog brains. Rat intestines. I've had enough of it. Make an example. Where's that form? Yes." He retrieved a large roll of parchment from his desk drawer and stretched it out in front of him, dipping his long black quill into the ink pot. "Name. Harry Potter. Crime." "It was only a bit of mud," said Harry. "It's only a bit of mud to you, boy, but to me it's an extra hour of scrubbing," shouted Filch, a drip shivering unpleasantly at the end of his bulbous nose. "Crime. Befouling the castle. Suggested sentence?" Dabbling at his streaming nose, Filch squinted unpleasantly at Harry, who waited with bated breath for his sentence to fall. But as Filch lowered his quill, there was a great bang on the ceiling of the office which made the oil lamp rattle. "Peeves!" Filch roared, flinging down his quill in a transport of rage. "I'll have you this time. I'll have you." And without a backwards glance at Harry, Filch ran flat-footed from the office, Mrs. Norris streaking alongside him. Peeves was the school poltergeist, a grinning airborne menace who lived to cause havoc and distress. Harry didn't much like Peeves, but couldn't help feeling grateful for his timing. Hopefully, whatever Peeves had done, and it sounded as though he'd wrecked something very big this time, would distract Filch from Harry. Thinking that he should probably wait for Filch to come back, Harry sank into a moth-eaten chair next to the desk. There was only one thing on it apart from his half-completed form, a large, glossy purple envelope with silver lettering on the front. With a quick glance at the door to check that Filch wasn't on his way back, Harry picked up the envelope and read, "Quick Spell, a correspondence course in beginner's magic." Intrigued, Harry flicked the envelope open and pulled out the sheaf of parchment inside. More curly silver lettering, writing on the inside front page said, "Feel out of step in the world of modern magic? Find yourself making excuses not to perform simple spells? Ever been taunted for your woeful wand work? There is an answer. Quick Spell is an all-new fail-safe, quick result, easy learn course. Hundreds of witches and wizards have benefited from the Quick Spell method. Madame Z. Nettles of Topsham writes, I had no memory for incantations, and my potions were a family joke. Now, after a Quick Spell course, I'm the centre of attention at parties, and friends beg for the recipes of my scintillation solution. Warlock DJ Prod of Didsbury says, My wife used to sneer at my feeble charms, but 1 month into your fabulous Quick Spell course, I succeeded in turning her into a yak. Thanks, Quick Spell. Fascinated, Harry thumbed through the rest of the envelope's contents. Why on earth did Filch want a Quick Spell course? Did this mean he wasn't a proper wizard? Harry was just reading Lesson 1, Holding Your Wand, Some Useful Tips, when shuffling footsteps outside told him Filch was coming back. Stuffing the parchment back into the envelope, Harry threw it back onto the desk just as the door opened. Filch was looking triumphant. That vanishing cabinet was extremely valuable, he was saying gleefully to Mrs. Norris. We'll have Peeves out this time, my sweet. His eyes fell on Harry, and then darted to the Quick Spell envelope, which, Harry realised too late, was lying 2 feet away from where it had started. Filch's pasty face went brick red. Harry braced himself for a tidal wave of fury. Filch hobbled across to his desk, snatched up the envelope, and threw it into the drawer. Did you read? He sputtered. No, Harry lied quickly. Filch's knobbly hands were twisting together. If I thought you'd read my private... Not that it's mine, for a friend, to be that is, may, however. Harry was staring at him, alarmed. Filch had never looked madder. His eyes were popping. A tick was going in one of his pouchy cheeks, and the tartan scarf didn't help. Very well, go. And don't breathe a word. Not that, however. If you didn't read... Go now. I have to write up Peeves. Go. Amazed at his luck, Harry sped out of the office, up the corridor, and back upstairs to escape from Filch's office. Thank you. Okay. Without punishment. Was probably some sort of school record. Harry, did it work? Nearly headless Nick came gliding out of a classroom behind him. Harry could see the wreckage of a large black and gold cabinet, which appeared to have been dropped from a great height. I persuaded Peeves to crash it right over Filch's office, said Nick eagerly. Thought it might distract him. Was that you? Said Harry gratefully. Yeah, it worked. I didn't even get detention. Thanks, Nick. They set off the corridor together. Nearly headless Nick, Harry noticed, was still holding Sir Patrick's rejection letter. I wish there was something I could do for you about the headless hunt, Harry said. Nearly headless Nick stopped in his tracks, and Harry walked right through him. He wished he hadn't. It was like stepping through an icy shower. But there is something you could do for me, said Nick excitedly. Harry, would I be asking too much? But no, you wouldn't want. What is it? Said Harry. Well, this Halloween will be my 500th Deathday, said Nearly Headless Nick, drawing himself up and looking dignified. Oh, said Harry, not sure whether he should look sorry or happy about this. Right. I'm holding a party down in one of the roomier dungeons. Friends will be coming from all over the country. It would be such an honour if you would attend. Mr. Weasley and Miss Granger would be most welcome too, of course. but I dare say you'd rather go to the school feast. He watched Harry on tenterhooks. No, said Harry quickly. I'll come. My dear boy Harry Potter at my Deathday party. And he hesitated.
Can I say something? Every, quiz I do to, see, what house I am in, this is one of the questions. You made a game as well, and this is, the quiz as well, and this is one of the questions. If Nearly Headless asked you if you want to go to his party, and I was always like, when was this a thing? And now I know this was in the book. Yeah, because in the movie, that's really engaging with the kids at all.
That is a question from my quiz.
Yeah,
yeah, I wrote that one.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Go on.
And he hesitated, looking excited. Do you think you could possibly mention to Sir Patrick how very frightening and impressive you find me? Oh, of course, said Harry. Nearly Headless Nick beamed at him. A Deathday party, said Hermione keenly, when Harry had changed at last and joined her and Ron in the common room. I bet there aren't many living people who can say they've been to one of those. It'll be fascinating. Why would anyone want to celebrate the day they died, said Ron, who was halfway through his potions homework and grumpy. Sounds dead depressing to me. Rain was still lashing the windows, which were now inky black, but inside all looked bright and cheerful. The firelight glowed over the countless squashy armchairs where people sat reading, talking, doing homework, or in the case of Fred and George Weasley, trying to find out what would happen if you fed a filibuster firework to a salamander. Fred had rescued the brilliant orange fire-dwelling lizard from a Care of Magical Creatures class, and it was now smouldering gently on a table surrounded by a knot of curious people. Harry was on the point of telling Ron and Hermione about Filch and the Quickspell course, when the salamander suddenly whizzed into the air, emitting loud sparks and bangs as it whirled wildly around the room. The sight of Percy bellowing himself hoarse at Fred and George, the spectacular display of tangerine stars showering from the salamander's mouth, and its escape into the fire, with accompanying explosions, drove both Filch and the Quickspell envelope from Harry's mind. By the time Halloween arrived, Harry was regretting his rash promise to go to the Deathday party. The rest of the school were happily anticipating their Halloween feast. The great hall had been decorated with the usual live bats. Hagrid's vast pumpkins had been carved into lanterns, large enough for 3 men to sit in, and there were rumours that Dumbledore had booked a troupe of dancing skeletons for the entertainment. A promise is a promise, Hermione reminded Harry bossily. You said you'd go to the Deathday party. So at 7 o'clock, Harry, Ron, and Hermione walked straight past the doorway to the packed great hall, which was glittering invitingly with gold plates and candles, and directed their steps instead towards the dungeons. The passageway leading to Nearly Headless Nick's party had been lined with candles too, though the effect was far from cheerful. These were long, thin, jet-black tapers, all burning bright blue, casting a dim, ghostly light even over their own living faces. The temperature dropped with every step they took. As Harry shivered and drew his robes tightly around him, he heard what sounded like 1,000 fingernails scraping an enormous blackboard. Is that supposed to be music? Ron whispered. They turned a corner and saw Nearly Headless Nick standing at a doorway, hung with black velvet drapes.
Was he alone that he was standing in front?
He's standing at the doorway. Oh. I'll keep going.
Okay, sorry.
My dear friends, he said mournfully, welcome, welcome, so pleased you could come. He swept off his plumed hat and bowed them inside. It was an incredible sight. The dungeon was full of hundreds of pearly white translucent people, mostly drifting around a crowded dance floor, waltzing to the dreadful, quavering sound of 30 musical saws played by an orchestra on a black draped platform. A chandelier overhead blazed midnight blue with 1,000 more black candles. Their breath rose in a mist before them. It was like stepping into a freezer. Shall we have a look around? Harry suggested, wanting to warm up his feet, careful not to walk through anyone, said Ron nervously, and they set off around the edge of the dance floor. They passed a group of gloomy nuns, a ragged man wearing chains, and the fat friar, a cheerful Hufflepuff ghost, who was talking to a knight with an arrow sticking out of his forehead. Harry wasn't surprised to see that the Bloody Baron, a gaunt, staring Slytherin ghost covered in silver bloodstains, was being given a wide berth by the other ghosts. "Oh no," said Hermione, stopping abruptly. Turn back. I don't want to talk to moaning Myrtle." "Who?" said Harry, as they backtracked quickly. "She haunts the girls' toilet on the first floor," said Hermione. "She haunts a toilet?" "Yes, it's been out of order all year because she keeps having tantrums and flooding the place. I never went in there anyway if I could avoid it. It's awful trying to go to the loo with her wailing at you." That would be rather unpleasant.
Yeah.
"Look, food," said Ron. On the other side of the dungeon was a long table, also covered in black velvet. They approached it eagerly, but next moment had stopped in their tracks, horrified. The smell was quite disgusting. Large rotten fish were laid on handsome silver platters. Cakes burned charcoal black were heaped on salvers. There was a great maggoty haggis.
I wish they had normal food because they actually invited human over.
But this food is for ghosts. It's not for human consumption.
Yeah, but they invited Harry.
It was probably an afterthought. They invited Harry yesterday. They probably had to set up catering and...
Catering?
Yeah, I'm sure they hired a caterer. It's fine.
For ghosts?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, funny.
They have,
funny.
consciousness.
Yeah.
The smell was quite disgusting. Large rotten fish were laid on handsome silver platters. Cakes burned charcoal black were heaped on salvers. There was a great maggoty haggis, a slab of cheese covered in furry green mould, and in pride of place, an enormous grey cake in the shape of a tombstone, with tar-like icing forming the words, Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington, died 31st of October, 1942. Your birthday. It's Halloween, remember?
Same day that Lily and
James and Lily's death day is the same death day as Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington.
And my birthday.
And Halloween and your birthday. What a day. Yeah, it's a very busy.
The only good thing about it is I was born.
You got the calendar and you're writing in things. It's not enough room. So many things to remember. Harry watched amazed as a portly ghost approached the table, crouched low, and walked through it. His mouth held wide so that it passed through one of the stinking salmon. "Can you taste it if you walk through it?" Harry asked him. "Almost," said the ghost sadly.
I feel like J.K. Rowling's now just want to put the bad stuff on Halloween. It can be good. I can be born. Yeah. J.K. Rowling, what is wrong with you, girl?
I think the death day for Nearly Headless Nick is like a good thing. If you're a ghost, a death day is like, it's like your birthday for a second life.
Yeah, but he's like half like head comes off. He can go through people. People are learning stuff, going out, doing things. I don't want to use bad words. Doing things, and like he's just like wandering around the halls. Boring. No.
I don't know. The way I look at it is, okay, so our lives, we know what we know, and we do what we do, right? And we don't know anything different. So if we don't know what we're missing out on, it's like, okay. Ghosts, like, they kind of know what they're missing out on from their previous life, but they're kind of doing their own thing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, they don't know what they're missing out. They don't, know of this afterlife. This is just...
How do they become ghosts? How are like, James and Lily Potter are
I think they touch on
dead.
it later when they're talking about Myrtle, but essentially it's just like they kind of choose it because they've, like, still got business going on. Like...
Yeah, but James and Lily had business going on.
What was their business?
Harry was alone.
No, obviously they were
and
like,
Voldemort was out.
Because Voldemort was dead. Like, they thought he was dead, so they would have been like, yeah, Harry will be fine.
No, a bit of him was in Harry, even I know.
They probably thought that Sirius would look after him, and...
They didn't care about Harry, did they?
Look, call J.K. Rowling up and be like, what the hell?
Yeah, and that and another thing that people are mad about her, I'm just going to ask that about as well. The trans thing going on? No.
Yeah, we're not going to touch that. With a 50-foot pole. Book 7, we'll start talking about that.
Why?
No, that's a whole video's worth of content there. I'll continue.
Everyone's trans in your world, J.K. Rowling.
Yep.
Sorry. Okay.
Can you taste it if you walk through it? Harry asked him. Almost, said the ghost sadly, and he drifted away. I expect they've let it rot to give it a stronger flavour, said Hermione, knowledgeably, pinching her nose and leaning closer to look at the putrid haggis. Can we move? I feel sick, said Ron. They had barely turned around, however, when a little man swooped suddenly from under the table and came to a halt in midair before them. Hey, Peeves, said Harry cautiously. Unlike the ghosts around them, Peeves the poltergeist was the very reverse of pale and transparent. He was wearing a bright orange party hat, a revolving bow tie, and a broad grin on his wide, wicked face. Nibbles, he said sweetly, offering them a bowl of peanuts covered in fungus. No thanks, said Hermione. Heard you talking about poor Myrtle, said Peeves, his eyes dancing. Rude you was about poor Myrtle. He took a deep breath and bellowed. Oi, Myrtle! Oh, no, Peeves, don't tell her what I said. She'll be really upset, Hermione whispered frantically. I didn't mean it. I don't mind her. Oh, hello, Myrtle. The squat ghost of a girl had glided over. She had the glummest face Harry had ever seen, half hidden behind lank hair and a thick, pearly spectacles. What? She said sulkily. How are you, Myrtle? Said Hermione, in a falsely bright voice. It's nice to see you out of the toilet. Myrtle sniffed. Miss Granger was just talking about you, said Peeves slyly in Myrtle's ear. Just saying how nice you look tonight, said Hermione, glaring at Peeves. Myrtle eyed Hermione suspiciously. You're making fun of me, she said, silver tears welling rapidly in her small, see-through eyes. No, honestly, I didn't. I was just saying how nice Myrtle's looking, said Hermione, nudging Harry and Ron painfully in the ribs. Oh, yeah, she did. Don't lie to me, Myrtle gasped, tears now flooding down her face, while Peeves chuckled happily over her shoulder. Do you think I don't know what people call me behind my back? Fat Myrtle, ugly Myrtle, miserable, moaning, moping Myrtle. You've missed out, Spotty, Peeves hissed in her ear. Moaning Myrtle burst into anguished sobs and fled from the dungeon. Peeves shot after her, pelting her with malty peanuts, yelling, Spotty! Spotty! Oh dear, said Hermione sadly. Nearly headless Nick now drifted towards them through the crowd. Enjoying yourselves? Oh yeah, they lied. Not a bad turnout, said Nearly Headless Nick proudly. The wailing widow came all the way up from Kent. It's nearly time for my speech. I'd better go and warn the orchestra. The orchestra, however, stopped playing at that very moment. They and everyone else in the dungeon fell silent, looking around in excitement as a hunting horn sounded. Oh, here we go, said Nearly Headless Nick bitterly. Through the dungeon wall burst a dozen ghost horses, each ridden by a headless horseman. The assembly clapped wildly. Harry started to clap too, but stopped quickly at the sight of Nick's face. The horses galloped into the middle of the dance floor and halted, rearing and plunging. A large ghost at the front, whose bearded head was under his arm, blowing the horn, leapt down, lifted his head high in the air so he could see over the crowd. Everyone laughed, and strode over to Nearly Headless Nick, squashing his head back into his neck. Nick, he roared, how are you? Head still hanging in there? He gave a hearty guffaw and clapped Nearly Headless Nick on the shoulder. Welcome, Patrick, said Nick stiffly. Livens, said Sir Patrick, spotting Harry, Ron and Hermione, and giving a huge fake jump of astonishment, so that his head fell off again. The crowd howled with laughter. Very amusing, said Nick darkly. Don't mind Nick, shouted Sir Patrick's head from the floor. Still upset we won't let him join the hunt. But I mean to say, look at the fellow. I think, said Harry hurriedly, at the meaningful look from Nick. Nick's very, frightening, and, ha! Yelled Sir Patrick's head. Bet he asked you to say that. If I could have everyone's attention. It's time for my speech, said Nearly Headless Nick loudly, striding towards the podium and climbing into an icy blue spotlight. My late lamented lords, ladies, and gentlemen, it is my great sorrow. But nobody heard much more. Sir Patrick and the rest of the Headless Hunt had just started a game of head hockey, and the crowd were turning to watch. Nearly Headless Nick tried vainly to recapture his audience, but gave up as Sir Patrick's head went sailing past him to loud cheers. Harry was very cold by now, not to mention hungry. A can't stand much more of this, Ron muttered, his teeth chattering as the orchestra ground back into action and the ghost swept back onto the dance floor. Let's go, Harry agreed. They backed towards the door, nodding and beaming at everyone who looked at them, and a minute later were hurrying back up the passageway full of black candles. Pudding might not be finished yet, said Ron hopefully, leading the way towards the steps to the entrance hall, and then Harry heard it. Rip, tear, kill. It was the same voice, the same cold, murderous voice he had heard in Lockhart's office. He stumbled to a halt, clutching at the stone wall, listening with all his might, looking around, squinting up and down the dimly lit passageway. Harry, what are you... It's that voice again. Shut up a minute. So hungry. I thought that was Ron saying it. So hungry.
I thought that too.
So hungry for so long. It's the voice.
Really? The voice is saying
the voice
so
is saying.
hungry?
I thought it was Ron saying it. Listen, said Harry urgently, and Ron and Hermione froze, watching him. Kill. Time to kill. The voice was growing fainter.
I kill time all the time.
Yep, me too. Harry was sure it was moving away, moving upwards. A mixture of fear and excitement gripped him as he stared at the dark ceiling. How could it be moving upwards? Was it a phantom, to whom stone ceilings didn't matter? This way, he shouted, and he began to run up the stairs into the entrance hall. It was no good hoping to hear anything here. The babble of talk from the Halloween feast was echoing out of the great hall. Harry sprinted up the marble staircase to the first floor, Ron and Hermione clattering behind him. Harry, what are we... Shh! Harry strained his ears. Distantly from the floor above, and growing fainter still, he heard the voice. I smell blood. I smell blood. His stomach lurched. It's going to kill someone, he shouted, and ignoring Ron and Hermione's bewildered faces, he ran up the next flight of steps, 3 at a time, trying to listen over his own pounding footsteps. Harry hurtled around the whole of the second floor, Ron and Hermione panting behind him, not stopping until they turned a corner into the last deserted passage. Harry, what was all that about? Said Ron, wiping sweat off his face. I couldn't hear anything. But Hermione gave a sudden gasp, pointing down the corridor. Look! Something was shining on the wall ahead. They approached slowly, squinting through the darkness. Foot-high words had been daubed on the wall between 2 windows, shimmering in the light cast by the flaming torches. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware. What's that thing hanging underneath? Said Ron, a slight quiver in his voice. As they edged nearer, Harry almost slipped over. There was a large puddle of water on the floor. Ron and Hermione grabbed him, and they inched towards the message, eyes fixed on a dark shadow beneath it. All 3 of them realised what it was at once, and leapt backwards with a splash. Mrs. Norris, the caretaker's cat, was hanging by her tail from the torch bracket. She was stiff as a board, her eyes wide and staring for a few seconds. They didn't move. Then Ron said, Let's get out of here. Shouldn't we try and help? Harry began awkwardly. Trust me, said Ron. We don't want to be found here. But it was too late. A rumble, as though of distant thunder, told them that the feast had just ended. From either end of the corridor where they stood came the sounds of hundreds of feet climbing the stairs, and the loud, happy talk of well-fed people. Next moment, students were crashing into the passage from both ends. The chatter, the bustle, and the noise died suddenly as the people in front spotted the hanging cat. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood alone in the middle of the corridor as silence fell among the mass of students, pressing forward to see the grisly sight. Then someone shouted through the quiet, Enemies of the air, beware! You'll be next, mudbloods. It was Draco Malfoy. He had pushed to the front of the crowd, his eyes alive, his usually bloodless face flushed, as he grinned at the sight of the hanging, immobile cat. That's it.
Oh,
Chapter.
cool.
Favourite bit?
The party.
The party?
Yeah, and the food.
Did you notice anything?
I liked Hermione that she was like, you promised you have to go. Good
Yep.
job, yes.
Good job, Hermione.
You got to go. Ron being funny and nagging all the time.
I'm just going like, it's cold. There's no food. What's going on?
The voices were funny. Not creepy at all.
Well, that's probably just because I'm reading it.
No. You tried to, like, make voices, which was good.
I
but,
try.
like, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay, do you want a burger?
I haven't had food in so long. It's like Ron was just reading about that. So, things I noticed as I was reading, and I'm pretty sure I even interrupted myself. At the beginning, the pepper up potion.
Yeah.
We spoke of that before the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was coming, but there you go. Harry's relative something made that. What was it called again? I literally just had the window up and I closed it. That's what I was doing. No, bugger it. Doesn't matter. That guy. I said at the beginning of the chapter. Also, Ginny. So they said like a lot of people were sick. Oh, but Ginny, who wasn't sick but was looking peaky. I wonder why she's looking peaky. Suppose we'll find out later. Oliver Wood still going crazy about Quidditch and making them train in the rain, not having like theory training sessions, but actual training sessions. Those numbers 2001s apparently really, really quick. Again, and we talked about it last chapter with Filch being a squib, and we actually read the I don't know. It was kind of like an infomercial, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like like a steam mop you get to buy 2 for 1 sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the distraction that Nearly Headless Nick organised for Peeves to throw the cabinet. Did you catch what the cabinet was?
What do you mean what the cabinet was?
It was actually the Vanishing Cabinet.
Okay.
They definitely said it somewhere.
Why is it important?
That's the Vanishing Cabinet that Draco Malfoy repairs in the Half-Blood Prince.
Oh, that cabinet!
That's the same cabinet.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go back to that section and see, like, it's the exact words.
Sorry that I, screamed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, Filch said, like, that Vanishing Cabinet.
Or like a... It's like a... What's it called? Like a clothes.
Yeah, it's a cabinet.
Thing.
Yeah.
Cabinet.
Filch was looking triumphant. That Vanishing Cabinet was extremely valuable. And so Peeves and Nearly Headless Nick were the ones that broke it in the first place. Which is funny because I actually remember Fred and George breaking it, but apparently not.
The stuff Filch had in his room.
Like the chains?
Yeah.
He's big on punishment.
And yeah, because I always saw Filch in the first movies. I saw him as like a creepy guy, but then I felt bad for him because they gave him like a box of chocolate. And he was like, ooh, he was just all like a sad man that haven't had love in his life. But now that it's changed, just like, oh, dude, they had to like throw you out of school because you were weird. That's not okay.
A quick check of Reddit. Apparently this is the first time they have a concrete time frame for when Harry Potter is occurring. Because it says Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington died 31st of October 1492. It's his 500th death day. So that means it's 1992. Currently. So that's the first time in Harry Potter where they're like, oh wow, okay. We know what the date is now. So cool. That kind of gives a time frame. There's a section here about, they're talking about Filch being a squib, which we already covered. But they're like, why would he take the job in the first place? Like, why would a squib want to work at a magical school? What do you reckon?
I don't know. I think if I was a squib, I would want to work in a magical thing. I don't know if it was a magical school, but it'll be like, oh, I wish I had complete magic, so I want to be amongst them and like be friends with them and stuff. You know? I think it's cool as a person, but I don't know what was his reason.
See, I don't think I'd want to do it. The way I think about it is like, imagine if you were a vegan and you worked as a chef at a restaurant.
That doesn't make sense. Like, he understands magic, so he can like magic. He doesn't like magic. Vegans don't like to eat meat.
But they like food.
Yeah, it's different food.
But, like, he could never fully experience, even if he's really passionate about it, which, to be honest, I don't think he is, given his disposition. True. Like, he's a pretty negative man.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's interesting that he would even want to work.
Maybe he was forced to.
I mean...
Maybe it was a family job he had.
It's not, like, you know, inconceivable that he could be forced to, because there are people that are forced to work at Hogwarts. They're called elves. They're like literal slaves who work in the kitchens.
He seems like an elf.
Why do they need Filch in the first place, though? Why can't the elves do Filch's job? They could do it way better, way faster. They have magic.
Maybe he has connection to someone. Or I'm saying he's like a family.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, maybe connection, because he's like really close to really bad characters that woman I hate.
He's good friends with Snape. And good friends with Umbridge.
Yeah. Cut this out.
I'll look into that. Maybe Filch has, like, you know, higher up sort of family members in Parliament or whatever. Maybe he got a cushy, you know, teacher's job.
See, like, they can, some of them can be muggles, some can be, like, into magic and stuff, right? So some of them can be, like, him. So maybe his family were, like, magic people that, like, cleaned there with that. He wasn't magic, and now he lives there. Yeah. Because I've never seen his room. Have we ever seen his room?
We don't see it in the movies.
Yeah. So maybe there's, like, a specific room they have for people to clean there. Or they're, like, they have his job, you know?
And the last point. The Headless Horsemen. And their whole gang. They seemed like a little bit rude and domineering of the party, and they kind of stole Nick's thunder on his 500th death day. But do you think Nearly Headless Nick should be allowed to be in their, like, crew?
Yeah, why not?
He's not headless, though.
He's nearly headless.
But he's not headless. He's nearly headless, because he's in ghost form. Like, he can't, like, finish the job, right? He's forever, like, hanging by a thread. So all these activities that...
Why shouldn't he not be in the crew?
Because they even say it, that the headless people, they have, like, activities that involve being able to, like, remove their head and throw it about and have, like, they were playing, like...
Yeah, but if he's not in the headless crew, where can he go? Normal?
Why does he have to be in the crew?
Because he'll feel left
There
out.
are other ghosts that
Let him have fun. What's wrong with that? I feel bad for him. Come on, he's a ghost.
I think that he's got some sort of issue, I don't know, but like
let him be.
He wants to be part of this club because they're all cool and everybody pays attention to them, and I just think he needs self-confidence, just be like, you know what, I'm not headless.
No, he doesn't have it. Let him be.
No, well, he wants to be part of this, and look, to be honest, I reckon this group, they're all full of big meanies. They're big meanies. They came in, they ruined Nick's party. Like, they probably made the party better for everybody else, but like, Nick's like trying to give a speech and they're like, yeah, let's play volleyball with our heads in the middle of the party while he's talking up there. Like, stuff that guy, you know? They're just really incredibly rude. And even just the way, what was his name? Sir something. I don't even remember his name. It doesn't matter. He was mean. He was really rude to Nick. And he was like, oh, like, Livens. Like, he was talking to Harry and Ron and Hermione. He was like, you live people, what are you doing here? Like, I'm not a fan of him. You know, Nearly Headless Nick is the Gryffindor ghost. Like, he should be one of the most high-ranking ghosts in the place, you know? Anything else to add?
No.
Do you like it?
Yes.
Score out of 10.
8.5.
You're happy to see the cat, like, not die, but be petrified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Finish it now?
Let's finish it there.
Thank you guys for watching. Answer the questions I asked. Thank you. And thank you again. And like and subscribe. Bye!
Haven't done that in a while. See ya.
Choo-choo.